So early on in my management career, as I've told you already, I struggled mightily to really communicate effectively and to really inspire my team. And it wasn't until talking with my boss and really worried about getting fired as a manager that he recommended that I go to a course. And so I went to a course that really opened my eyes to some things that allowed me to create more freedom, build teams, and improve retention in my own management situation. And over the years, I think this was about 20 years ago when I first did this, I've modified this and really put this together. And this is something I want to go over with you today and how we put this together. Now, before I do that, in the first video that we talked about just introducing the management skills magnifier and why most managers struggle to lead their teams initially and what they're lacking in their management situation. And that's what we talked about in video 1. In video 2, I broke down some of the entry points and the initial steps of the management skills magnifier process and starting to discover a little bit more about you and who you are and your skills and talents that you can bring to your management. Now, if you haven't seen those first 2 videos, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to pause this one. I want you to go back and watch those and then come back to this video. So one of the things that we want to do in management is we want to create empowered teams. And one of the best ways to create empowered teams is communication. That was something I really struggled with, specifically confrontation. And if you're like me, when you see a situation that has to be confronted, you're kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to have this conversation with this person. And some of the things that I worried about, and I bet you can relate to these too, is I didn't want people to dislike me. I didn't want them to think I was a jerk. I didn't want them to think I was being unfair. I just wanted to ensure that my team stayed positive and that they stayed productive. Ironically, the less I confronted people, the less productive and the less harmonious our team was. But the more I leaned into confrontation, the more productive and the more harmonious my team was. Go figure. It's completely counterintuitive to what I ever thought being a manager was all about. And so I learned some things about confrontation and how to do this in a healthy way that really allowed me to have a conversation with another person. Because here's the thing in confrontation. Confrontation is not about making someone wrong. It's not about beating someone over the head in their failure and using shame and condemnation and all those things, which admittedly I was super good at early on in my management career. But what it is it's a conversation of really walking with someone in a powerful way to both achieve the same goals and end results that you're both there to achieve. And as a leader, your team wants to do a good job. They didn't wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I want to suck today at work. I'm going to do a horrible job. They didn't do that. And so as a leader, we want to figure out, well, what got in their way and how do we do that? So I want to kind of go through how we confront behavior in a really healthy way. So the whole process of doing confrontation well starts with being supportive. So here's the thing. I want to restore a relationship. I want a person to grow. I want them to improve. They're not going to do that if I use guilt, shame, condemnation. So what does that look like? You know how this looks. You've used these words before. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. Oh my gosh, I trusted you with this. This is so disappointing. You know, those kinds of words, as easy as a manager to really get those, have those come out. And this is where in the last video, if you didn't watch it, make sure you do, I talked about ego and where ego can get in the way of management. And this is one of the areas that it does. Because when someone makes a mistake, we go right to the ego of this person has offended me. This person has offended my business. This person has offended my customers. I am so mad at this person. But here's the thing. What if they didn't mean to offend you? What if they didn't mean to make you angry? What if it could be something else? We want to be supportive to this process because what I want is I don't want to fire someone because they made a mistake. What I want to do is help them grow and help them improve. So I want to be supportive. And now what that may look like is, hey, John, we're having this conversation. What I want you to know is I love you being a part of this team. I'm really excited that you're on this team, and I look forward to watching your growth over the next few months and years as you work with us. Okay, that's supportive. That's something that shows John that, hey, you're working towards the future with him and you think that he's an important member of your team. That's important. The second thing is to be clear. Now, I don't know if you're like me. Clarity was sometimes hard because I wanted to dance around the issue. I was so nervous about bringing up confrontation that I would just be like, well, that thing the other day where you did that thing and then this other thing happened. And like we have all these team members and, when our customers, and the whole time the team members sitting there and they're like, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about. What are you even referring to? I have no idea. Or one of the classic lack of clarity situations we do is we have a team meeting and we invite everyone on the team to the meeting and then we bring up the issue that we're angry about. And then you know what everyone does in that meeting after you've brought up that issue is they say in their head, that's not me. He's not talking about me. So no one receives the message. It didn't get to the intended person because they think you're probably talking about someone else. You're not talking to me. So part of clarity is being in a one-on-one situation to say, look, I'm talking to you, and being really clear about the issue. Like, hey, John, you were a half hour late yesterday for work. I want to talk with you about that. Super clear. This is what we're talking about. And we go through that. Now, working together is the third part. This is where leaders really get tripped up. They want to be a prescriber. They want to be a fixer. So when you're a manager, you're used to solving problems. You got to the responsibility that you have today because you're good at your job. And because of that, you tend to think that your job as a manager is to fix other people's problems. But here's why that doesn't empower people. When you fix other people's problems, they keep coming to you for you to continually fix their problem. It's kind of the whole concept of give a man a fish and he eats for a day, teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. This is what we want to do in the work together phase. We want to work together with someone, which means that I'm going to say, hey, John, you were late yesterday. How are we going to fix it? And what I'm looking for is some specific action and some specific behavior to overcome being late. Now, what is a common response that we get to certain things like this? Someone may say, I'm just going to try harder. Or, you know what? You're right, Brandon. I need to do better. Okay, I don't know what that means. They probably don't know what that means, but they're saying it because it just sounds good. So they're just going to tell you that so you'll get off their back. And then they're like, okay, all right, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but here's what this looks like. So let me give you an example of how you can work through this in a more powerful way. I, myself, early on in my career, was a late employee. I was the employee that was late to work. That was me. I remember my boss confronting me at some point in time about being late. And I did all the things that most employees do, right? I said, hey, I just got to get my crap together. You're right. I got to try harder. I got to do better. Didn't work. My boss didn't fall for it. He said, that's not good enough. I don't think your behavior is going to change. And I thought, okay. So I started thinking about why I was late. And one of the reasons I was late is I stayed out frequently late every single night, and I didn't get a good night's sleep. So one of the things I talked to my boss about is saying, hey, you know what? One of the probably the key behaviors that I can change to be on time is to get more sleep. So I said, what I'm going to commit to you is I'm going to get to sleep at a decent hour by 11 o'clock so that when my alarm goes off at 7, I've got a full 8 hours and I'm going to be put in a position where I can get to work on time. And I'm going to stop certain behaviors that I was doing, whether it be drinking at the bar or other things, so that I can make sure that I do those things. Now, lo and behold, I changed those behaviors, and guess what? I was on time a hell of a lot more to work than I was before. And my boss really pressed me to make some behavioral changes that was going to ensure that I was going to be on time for work. Now, he worked together with me on that situation to come up with a solution, and we can do this. When I do this for other people, it shows that they're invested in their problems and they have the skills and the tools that they need to actually solve the problem permanently, not just as a quick fix Band-Aid situation. And that's really what we want. So we want to work together for a solution. We want them to come up with, how are you going to fix this problem? And we want to be as specific in that process as possible. Now, here's the last thing, which is so critical. You don't want to miss this. It's follow-up. Do not miss follow-up. Follow-up says, I care about the conversation that we had, And I'm going to recognize one of two things in follow-up. I'm going to recognize either you're doing it right or we still have some work to do to get the situation that we're confronting correct. This is so critical. When we talk about accountability and we talk about good accountability, this is where as a manager, your accountability to people in the conversations that you have will go a long way into setting that importance for the conversation. Now, what happens if you have this conversation with someone and you never follow up with them? You just told that person that this conversation really didn't matter and I don't really care if you change your behavior because I'm not bringing it up. And then it becomes business as usual for people. And I don't know about you, but this makes my life a heck of a lot harder when I did this in my own management. And when I started to follow up better, I started to see more lasting and permanent solutions to problems that I didn't have to continually revisit. One of the biggest things that I hear from managers and leaders is they get so frustrated with having to repeat themselves over and over and over again. I'm sure you're the same way. And so this is a way that we can help reduce the amount of time that we have to repeat ourselves with our teams. So if you felt like this was helpful, this is just a sample of what the Masters of Management course offers you as a manager and as a leader. And when you apply these principles, how much more simple and effective your management can be through this process. Now, we're going to get into our next video where we're going to talk about really just creating agreements. We're going to talk about organization in your management. We're going to talk about a lot of different things that really help you to become a powerful manager. And in this process, the Masters of Management course, this is the most complete course I have ever done in management. This takes 20 years of management experience that I am synthesizing into a really simple, actionable course. So in our next video, we're going to go through the Management Skills Magnifier process, and I'm going to take you through as much of that process as I can from A to Z to kind of give you a complete snapshot and a window into what that process looks like. So be on the lookout for that next video. And if you haven't done it yet, the link is below. Click to get on the early bird list. This is your best chance to make sure that you get access to the Masters of Management course because it will be a limited first come, first serve situation for you. So do that right now and we'll see you on the next video.